Hi everybody, how's it going? All right, so I'm here today with a little bit of an impromptu stream. I've got in front of me tonight another Tealight holder, and if you are not new to the channel, you'll see that I've done, at this point, I'm pretty sure there have been 8 published and 2 more that I've already done that are upcoming. So what I'm going to do now is, because I've got more or less the 10 patterns that I've decided on and are going to be taking to my craft show, I wanted to get back to actually working on some things that you guys can follow along with. Because the 10 that I did previously, I did go ahead and record them, and just kind of very quickly, I didn't do any commentary with them, and I know that people do like following along and do want to know the tool sizes, etc. So because I'm going to be taking several duplicates anyways, now that I've kind of got myself, I'm not going to say caught up because I still have a lot to do, but now that I've got myself kind of settled, I did want to stop, kind of rewind a little bit and work on some stuff with you guys in mind. So here we are. So this is actually going to be and I'm going to say recreation of, because it's going to be the same colors and general pattern of series number 3, or episode number 3 in the series, I guess I should say. So what I've got in front of me now, the background, I did change the color slightly. Originally, the color that I had used was the 2024 Decor Americana color, the Ultra Blue Deep. I'm sticking with that same 2024 palette, but I actually went to the Twilight. So it's just ever so slightly more purpley than blue, but same thing. Okay, I just wanted to try this one out because the Ultra Deep wasn't quite as dark as I wanted it to be. I didn't know if this one was going to be any darker, but I just kind of wanted to move it around a little bit. In my palette, I've got white, I've got Blue Harbor, and then I've got another 2024 color, which is the Stormy. Okay, so there's not a ton of difference between these two colors, but I'm going to try to offset that with the white. And then just like in the original one, I'm using bright silver. Okay, so I've already got the grid laid out on this one. Okay, for my tools, I have the Happy Dotting Company tools per the usual up here. Now I've got everything from the 0.5 up to the 6 laid out, and then I've pulled out 3 of my dot art tools. Now, because the colors are not going to be an indication of size, the ones that I'm using, I have the 0.5, or the smallest head available. This one is slightly pointed, and I just use this for swooshes. And then I'm going to be using, I do believe, anyways, I used these 2, and if not, whatever. I've grabbed the 3, which, again, for me, in the nail art tools, was the largest size that I had in those. And then the one just below that, essentially, which is, I think it actually is a 2.1. I don't think it's an even 2. I have a 2.1 written down. So something a little smaller than that. Okay, so that's all of my tools. That's all of my setup. So let's go. I'm going to start with a 6, and I'm going to try to follow the original pattern, not like super close. Oh, actually, you know what? I take that back. I'm going to put the 6 down. I'm going to try to follow the original pattern, not like super the same. There's obviously going to be a few differences just because I didn't write down the pattern to any of those 10 that I did. And maybe that was a mistake. I don't know. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it. And each piece is going to be slightly different, slightly unique anyways. So here we go. I'm going to back up a 2. I'm going to take out a 2, and we're going to do a rim of dots around the edge. Doesn't matter where you start. Again, the tea lights that I have are, this is also the mold from the Happy Dotting Company. And this is the 4.2 inch. Now the other thing to mention is that the inside here, where the Tealight actually sits, I have not yet painted. It will be silver, just like the original. You can do that before though. I just didn't. I don't find that it makes any difference. It's not, for example, harder to do it once the paint has been applied around it. It doesn't necessarily have a lip, but if you paint and you pull your paintbrush straight up, thus far I've not had any problems with any paint spilling over that edge. So it's very, very clean. So I'm just going to do it after, just because I sat down the other night and I painted a couple of bases. So I did a couple black and then this blue one. And just for whatever reason at that time, I had just pulled out only the black and the blue. And so that's all I did. So that was just kind of a lazy moment on my part. I'll be honest. I didn't just want to get up because I wasn't working here in my little office studio room. I was actually out in the living room with the family. So I just didn't want to get up and go get that. So I just did the base, and I knew that I could go ahead and do the inside later. So that's what I'll do. Now, as you can see on this one, the dots, I'm just putting them in a line. I'm paying no attention whatsoever to the grid on this, and I suppose you could. I suppose if you're a little newer and it's more comfortable for you to follow the grid, absolutely do. I do believe, well, if you're doing a 2 and you're doing the same size grid, I think you're going to be able, just like this one, I started the very first one on a line. There are 2 here, and then the third one is just before the line. So if you do that, you may want to scale up from a 2 to a 2.5, or you can leave just a smidge of space. So then if you do that and you follow the grid, put 1 dot here, 1 dot here, and then 2 in between, right? And just make sure that they're equally spaced. That's what I would do. Dot your grid, 2 in between, dot your grid, 2 in between, and just keep that even that way. All right, so I'm gonna go up to a 3. Again, for me, this is the same thing. I could very easily follow the grid and get a little bit more of the, you know what I'm gonna do? I seen this last dot a little small. Sorry, it caught my attention. Okay. What I could do is adjust the sizing just a little bit so each dot falls exactly in between the crook of the next, but I'm not overly worried about it, and it just adds a lot of time. I know that sounds awful, but at the moment, for me, speed is just ever so slightly important. Okay. If you want to do that and you like that appearance, which is kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like a cat's eye, I guess. Then you just want to scale down a little bit. Or I suppose you could go up. But if you want to keep the 2 thinner lines, then you just want to scale down a half a size. Okay. And again, I am using flat-headed tools. If you are using round-headed tools, you will not be getting the same size dot as I'm calling out. So you will need to adjust accordingly. Unfortunately, there really isn't some sort of a grid or a scale to go by, some sort of a conversion chart from doing the flat-headed tools to the round, because keep in mind that the round tools, the larger headed round tools, and I've put the ones that I own away. I don't like them and I don't use them anymore. Those are actually for clay. That they have absolutely no association originally to paint. That's why they're so heavy. They're made for clay. So the tool sizing is going to be based on as if the head of the tool, the ball was sliced in half, and that's how they're measuring that diameter. But when we're dipping it in paint, we're only using the head. I can't even really show you on this, but we're only using the head of the ball, and we're not going to be pushing it at the depth of the center or forward up. So that sizing's not consistent with a flat-headed tool. So you just have to make some adjustments. All right. Okay, now we're going to go into the 6 like I wanted to begin with. I just jumped way ahead of myself. Me. Okay, dark blue. Off my tool here. All right, we're going to go back to the 2 and the white again. And we're going to get a top dot placed on all of these. And if I'm going too fast for anyone, if you're jumping in and you do want to follow along with this, even on just an art stone or even just a flat paper or canvas or something else, please feel free to stop and pause. You don't want to go any faster than you can handle. Okay, I'm going to move down to a 1.5. And we're going to do the walked dots. The only thing that you really need to make sure of is that you don't double dip when you're doing this with that tool, and you want to make sure that each dot you simply lift up completely so you're not dragging it in any way. And then there's no secret to making the next dot next to it other than just relax and let your hand move naturally. Because if you really focus too hard and you're like, okay, I'm going to put this dot here. Okay, and then I need to get this one lined up, and then I need to put it here. You know, oh, and I need to space it. It's not going to work. Your brain will get the better of you. So as long as you're lifting it up completely, you're not dragging or accidentally touching the surface, then the walk will come out all on its own. It may take a little bit of practice if you're not used to it. Ensuring that maybe your hand doesn't move too far. Just keep your wrist, oh boy, I can actually talk. Just keep your wrist and the rest of your hand steady. The only thing that is moving are these 3 fingers that are actually holding the tool. The other thing that helps me is to count the dots as I walk them, just so I kind of have an idea that I'm on the right track. But once you start doing it, you get such a feel for it that that's not necessary either. Okay, now again, that was a 1.5. Now we're going to start with a few swooshes here. So what I'm going to do, we're going to start by picking up a 3, and I'm going to go into the white again. Well, let's see. I'm going to look at my original pattern just to make sure I'm not, yeah, okay. We're going to go into a 3, okay, and then I'm going to make another dot here on top. On all of these. And I'm going to go half a step down to a 2.5. And then we're going to make just 1 dot on either side of this one. Okay. So I'm going to put that at an angle right between those 2. For me, it's easier just to do one side this way and then the other. Just like with the walk dots. Since I'm right-handed, I it's easier for me to use a different angle to do the ones on the left. Maybe I'm a little weird that way, but that's just me. If you're okay with it, then you can go ahead and just do them one at a time, both dots. Okay. There, like that. Get that wiped off. Okay, now I'm going to go down to my swoosh tool. Okay, this is my nail art tool. Like I said, the head on this one is actually a 2.1. I don't believe, no, I wanted to double check. When I originally got my set, the 3 was the largest that I had, and this one was the next size down. So if that's any help, because I know that these are not labeled. And like me, when I first started the craft and I bought these on Amazon, it was one of those like mixed sets with the clay balls and these ones and a couple of the acrylic rods and stuff. They don't come with instructions. They don't have any sizings. And like I said, the color didn't help either because each manufacturer makes them a different color. So it's very, very hard to tell. Okay. You can use the 2-tool method if you prefer it. But I'm going to go ahead and just for this one, use this. And again, this is the 2.1. 2, you know, whatever you can get close to. All right. I'm going to completely cover the head of the tool. Dip that in really nicely. See if I can get a good spot for my hand here. Okay. And then I'm going to take and touch the surface. Yep, you heard that right. So I'm going to touch the surface right here where the next dot actually would go. And then ever so gently, just follow the curve of the dots to the end. Okay. And then dip it again really, really good, all the way like down to the bottom of the well of the paint. And then just gently follow the curve. Okay. I'm not wiping off the tool in between, nothing like that. Okay. You can go as fast or slow as is comfortable. And I actually prefer to do these instead of with my tool straight up and down, at an angle like a pencil. Just whatever is comfortable. Don't overthink it too much. But if you can kind of hold it like a pencil, the curve comes more naturally. And that's the other reason you want to make sure that it's very heavily dipped, dunked, whatever. Okay. There's one side. Now I'm going to go to the next side here. Let's see what's comfortable. Because my problem is always doing it on the other side because I can't see where my first dot is. And hey, Red Jordan, thank you so much. I certainly appreciate it. I get so wrapped up here. Didn't mean to miss it there. All right, I'm going to, let's try it from here. That one didn't come all the way down, so I'm going to do this one since I redipped. Okay, then I'm going to take this and start at the top again and drag it back around. Because if you do it from the middle, the bottom, oh, actually this one's could go a little farther as well. You'll see that on these two, because I pulled them again, the bottom is not as sharp. And especially so if you were to start like here, for example, and you try to draw it down versus starting from the top and then making the full motion again, it's even going to make it wider on the bottom. And then it's going to look like not much of a swoosh anymore. It's just going to look like a big fat straight line. That one was a little heavy, but that's one that I can live with. Okay, I'm gonna wipe my tool off real quick. Paint will start to build up. You do want to leave it on there, but not so much that it starts changing the size. All right, a couple more on these. So we've got the base there. What did I do on the next ones? We did another swoosh. Let me see here. I think I originally did a 3, but there's no way that's going to fit. I'm going to stick with the 2. And we're going to do another swoosh in between these. So basically we're just going to mirror this one again down. Again, that's going to be a 2, but I'm just going to go into the light blue this time instead of the dark. And let's start. So we'll stay in the same line. And I'm just going to follow that pretty close. And I'm perfectly fine with these touching. In the original one that I did, they were pretty darn close too. Once we get done with this one, then we're going to do another series of walked dots over the top of these. So just to kind of let you know where we're heading with this. The other thing that I'll mention is if you do, because as you can see here, almost on every single one of these, I'm going back over because they're not quite as long as I want. If on the first one, you are actually touching and pulling the paint, like holding the ball down to the surface and pulling, which is fine. When you go back and you're pulling the paint through to make it longer, don't do that the second time. Basically, just like glide this through the paint and just touch the paint itself and just move the paint. Because if you push any harder than that when you go through a second time, then you're going to get lines in the paint where you can clearly see that the surface underneath. You're really just dragging the paint too hard. And instead of, you know, just moving it, you're really just like digging into it. And you will see the little drag marks. And you'll have to either go back and fix those either as you're doing it or once they're dry. So just not even worth the trouble there. All right, so there is that. Let's see. Then we do have, let's go to trying to match the original as much as possible. And I think we're okay with that. Okay, I am looking at a 3 at the moment, and with the 3, I think I'm going to change up what I originally did just so it looks a little itsy bitsy tiny cleaner. Okay, yep, I'm just checking. All right, so I'm going to stay with the 3. We're going to stay in the light blue, and then what I'm going to do is we're going to take and put, I call it a landing dot, right here where these two meet. We're going to go back now into a 6, and still we're going to be in the light blue. And then we're going to put a dot right on top of that one. Now for me, the stencil, let me grab it real quick. Okay, hold on. So this is the one that I use, and it's a 12-point stencil. That's what I'm working with here. I mentioned that because the stencil that I use, as you can see here, has the little gaps in between. So if you're not 100% sure where these should be placed, if you're using a stencil like that to mark this out, then basically this one should be right between that, in those 2 dots. The dot, ooh, let me resave that because my brain didn't function. This dot should be in between those 2 lines centered. Whew. Apparently I haven't had enough coffee today. All right, let me... All right, I hope you guys are going to be able to see this nicely. Okay. I'm going to try to position this just a little bit different. Okay, hang with me because the sides are always really, really difficult to see. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this just ever so slightly. Hopefully this works that way. Okay. All right. That's a little better. Okay. Because even though, I mean, this is really tilted. For me, this is, I can see this perfectly, but the camera angle is never, never good. Okay. So I have this propped up on an angle. What I'm going to do is we're going to do a set of 2 walked dots here, but we're going to start with a slightly larger size than what we were before. And that's going to be the 3 we're going to start out with. Per the original pattern, we're going to go back into white. And what I am going to do, because this is always such an awkward angle here, I know you don't have to do it this way, but I'm going to. So let me do a couple here. Okay, that's a 3. I'm going to go into a 2.5 at the other end of the tool. Wipe that off real quick. I'm going to go to the 2.5. I'm going to do the first dot of my walked dots. Just like we had underneath when we started the swoosh, but I'm not going to do a swoosh here. Okay, there. All right. And the reason I'm doing this, like I said, is because I'm on an angle. The camera view is better. And moving it constantly, I could very well nick the paint on this side over here. It being on top of my little lifter here. Okay, so don't feel pressured to do it that way. You could just go through just like we did with the previous steps and put the top dot of the 3 on all of them at one time and then go back in with the 2.5. And again, I'm just swapping from the 3 to the 2.5. Just back and forth here. And this is kind of a reminder as well that you do not, when you do walked dots, you absolutely do not have to do the walked dots all with the same tool. You can change up the size as you go down. For me, it's 3 dots. And each dot progressively down is a half a step or half a size. And then just do 3 dots and then pick up your other tool, for example. For the larger ones, it's beautiful. It changes things dramatically. They look a lot cleaner, in my opinion. Okay. Okay, I got all those. Okay, so now into a 2, and I'm going to finish the walked dots all the way around. And then I'm using my hand here. I know it's kind of an odd position, but basically I'm just using it as a stabilizer. If you guys have any issues with your hands shaking, I know a lot of people in my group have commented about that. This and the little pillow thing that I have underneath me here are really, 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 really nice. Really, really good ways to combat that. And then, of course, I always use my pinky, right? I mean, I used to say it all the time when I first started, and then I kind of just dropped out because but I'm one of those weird people that when I'm drinking like coffee or tea, it's not because I even notice that I'm doing it, but I'm one of those people with my finger out. And my husband, it makes terrible fun of me for doing that. All in fun, of course. He's not really trying to be mean. However, man, let me tell you, my little pinky finger here for the stabilization, just, finding a good place to stick it, best thing in the world to stop your hand from shaking. And a lot of times it's not just because you have a physical ailment that causes your hands to shake, because mine do too. I don't have any issues that would cause that physically. And sometimes it's stress. We tend to kind of hold our breath sometimes. A lot of things that we don't notice. Okay, this is all a 2. Okay, that was slightly large. All right, I'm gonna leave my tool off real quick. All right, last one. There. All right, we're gonna do another one. So we're gonna jump up to a 4. I will do my best to try to make sure you can see some of this, but I can't guarantee it. Just the angle is kind of funny. Let me look at the camera angle again here real quick. I don't know. Because the problem is I can't tilt that much more than that. Let's see. Try to move this a little. That's about as far down as I can bring it. Okay, so it is what it is, right? All right, so I'm gonna go into a 4. I learned my lesson and I just can't continue to hold it for the camera on my wrist. It starts to kill my wrist pretty bad after a while. Okay, all right, like I said, I think that's about as low as I can tilt. We're gonna go into the dark blue and I'm gonna go with a 4. Pretty much the same practice here though. I'm gonna do almost the identical thing. With the double dots on the side, we're gonna pull it down a half a size. But instead of just 2 tools, I'm gonna end up using 3 for this. Seems like the, more or less for me, any size over a 3, walk dots on a flat-headed tool aren't as nice. I mean, it's possible. I can get a good 3 or sometimes if I stretch it, a good 4 dots in a good walk from a flat-headed tool above a size 3, but mostly I don't even try. I split it up. Okay, so we're gonna go from a 4 to a 3.5. Get my blue hands. Okay. Okay. 3.5. And again, we're just playing with being able to see versus actually not rubbing the paint off on the other side of the holder. I mean, for me, I can see this easily. The angle is fine for me. Just, I apologize. I know it's not for you. So 3.5, we're going to go down to a 3. And I'm going to do 2 dots. Well, let's see. Let's see how many. Probably 2. Yep, that's fine. Again, we're going to be doing a walk, but we're just doing it 2 dots at a time. And if you have round-headed tools, if you don't necessarily like the way that I'm doing this, because that's totally fine, then go ahead and just walk all the way down. Like I said, this is personal preference for me because I don't like the walked dots. I don't like the way that they come out in the larger tool sizes on a flat-headed tool. So. Now we're going to go down to a 2 because that was a 3 and I did 2 dots. So that means it's going to be a 2. Then we're going to finish that. Oops, I stuck my finger right at the top of this one. So I'm just going to put a little tiny dot there to fix it. Okay, all right, let me wipe that off. I don't want anything else on my hand because you know what'll happen. If I have any little bit of paint on my hand, then I'm going to turn and touch something, spread it. Okay, all right, that's better. All right, so 2. I'm going to add a little bit more paint to my palette here. Just a teeny. Now this blue too is very dark. The 2, although one is kind of more purple, the other one is darker blue, almost like a teal. I know it doesn't show up very well, but what we're going to do is add a little bit of a silver around the outside so that it shows up. Tiny, tiny little details make all the difference. Almost done here. There. Okay. Now, let me do those details. So I'm going to take a 1. Where's my silver? I'm going to take my 1 here, and I've got the silver. Now the silver, this particular one is just a Craftsmart silver. It's really bright, almost pearl. Pearl would be pretty too. Kind of whatever you got. All right. And so now I'm going to take the 1 and I'm going to put a dot right in between each of these. And I'm going to use the same walk dot method. I'm not going to go all the way around, but about 4 dots is sufficient. I know what it looks like right now. Because I have the grid here, it still kind of looks maybe even a bit of a mess, but don't worry. That'll come right off. For my grid, I use a white charcoal pencil. And the cool thing that I figured out on accident, sort of, at some point in time, is that when you are completely done with this, then you can take just an ever so slightly damp cloth and just rub it over the whole thing. Like, your paint is not going to come off if you don't rub it. but the charcoal slides right off. It's beautiful. So I just take and go over these with a very, 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 very damp, light, damp cloth. So there we go. There. Okay. Now hopefully this shows up on screen pretty okay. I know the blues are freshly melded together, so with this itty bitty tiny little detail, it makes them show up. Okay. And actually I kind of went for 3. I didn't even realize that. I think the first one I did was 4 dots, and then I've been doing 3 since. I've kind of just been going along this grid line here. It doesn't matter. Somebody's gonna notice, but it's not. It's not detrimental. Okay. There. All right, so there's that part. The last thing I've got to, well, no, second to last thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna fill this space here. We're gonna do that with a white swoosh. Let's take a peek at what. Let's see. What I want to do is fill this space pretty nicely. It might even be a 6. Yeah, I think it's going to be a 6. Okay. So I've got my swoosh tool, and again, let's make sure that hopefully you're still going to see this okay. All right. All right, that's about as fantastic as I can get it. All right, I have one more left that I can flick real quick. Let's see if that helps too. Not really. Sorry. No, tried. We tried. All right. My house is lit up like a Christmas tree. Let's see. 6. All right, so I'm just going to sit this right in between on this line, centered on that line. Now, since this is my first one, probably going to have to dunk my end of my tool into the paint itself, just so that I have enough paint to carry the swoosh. All right, so for swooshes, if you really haven't done them in the 2-tool method, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? I'll show you this. So the dot goes in. I've got the paint here, which you don't necessarily need, but anyways. Okay, so I start from the top of the dot. We're going to very lightly pull all the way through the dot and then continue down. I'm going to do this a couple of times because, like I said, this is the first dot. There's not enough paint quite yet on my tools. That will build up as we go. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do, right along the crosshairs here, right along the midline of the dot, I'm going to take the edge and I'm going to pull that in a diagonal line to the tip. Okay. Same thing on this side. You can gather some paint from the middle if you've got it. Otherwise, tip. Okay, mid. Oops. And there. Just keep pulling. Okay. Now, when I say pull, don't push down. Your tool can potentially touch the surface. Okay, I'm not going to say that it should just float in the paint and you can't touch the surface. Okay, but if possible, try not to, because it's going to come out cleaner if you don't. And then it's like coloring. Then you're basically just bringing the color from the dot and filling this in. Okay, now see if I actually touch this and I pull it, see these little lines? Because we're actually parting the paint and we don't really want to do that. So that's why I say just do your best not to touch the surface. Let your tool float in the paint. Okay, and then do not wipe it off between each of the dots. Okay, get that on like really heavy. Same thing, I didn't wipe this one off. You can still see the paint from the previous one on this one. Okay, so all the way through. And you notice again, I'm using this like a pencil, right? Because I want to carry as much of the paint as possible through it, right? So I'm using more of the surface of the tool to do that. Okay, like that. I don't need just the tip in this instance. There. Okay. This always takes a little longer than using the one tool method, and it does give a slightly different shape than doing it the other way. The best advice that I can give otherwise for doing these is just make sure that whatever action you're taking, like if you're pulling this and as you see it, the paint doesn't carry all the way through and you need to extend the line again, just like before, start that whole motion again. Like if I start here and I'm like, oh, that's not long enough, don't just pick it up here and try to do it again. All the way back and through. See, and as I continue with the swooshes, the paint build up on my tool. I don't constantly now have to be re-dipping this one. I have enough paint now in the dots to do this, but for the first couple. There. Somehow it looks like I got just ever so slightly off of the grid. So don't mind me. It's like one or two of them is just a little bit to the left of my grid line. Okay, yeah, but all of these should be super light touches. Pardon me. Okay. So straight through the middle. And just paint in the sides. This one, it's a little close, so let's see. Last one. In the original, I actually added some hearts along the bottom. And I think I just about split my wrist doing that. I'm telling you, it's like, oh, I tried really, really hard to film it, and it just, if it was me, I probably would have, if I wasn't filming it, I probably would have just held this up, waited until it was dry, and then like either flipped it over or just did it. But especially because I'm filming it, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that today. You won't be able to see it, and although it might be kind of cute, I don't think it's necessary. So, the only other thing though, well, the edge is not too bad. The edge does come pretty clean. I think I'm gonna leave it like that. I don't think that I need the extra here. The only thing that maybe, how about a 4.5? I could just put one dot here. Just one single dot. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna just do it. If it's out of view, it's out of view. I am so sorry. I really am. I just can't, won't be able to hold it, and what'll end up happening is, because this one is a little farther down, I'm afraid that if I'm too concerned about it, that I'm gonna end up messing the paint up on the other side. All right, so I'm just gonna do this. Okay, all right, so that's done. Now, let me even out my little pillow. Wipe my tool off. Last but not least is going to be the silver accentuations here. I'm gonna use, now this was originally a 3. Okay, so I'm gonna take a 1.5. I'm gonna do a top dot on each of these at the bottom. One thing that I have found about doing these tea lights, oops, that's completely off. Let me fix that. One thing that I do like is the fact that by the time you get back to where you started here, these dots are dry. It's not like maybe a flat canvas or something where I'm constantly having to wait for a section to dry before I can do anything, before I can touch it. This kind of forces me to slow down just a tiny, and stuff dries. Okay. And I like putting the dot at the bottom because it does continue to make the eye come towards the middle. A long time ago, when I started, feels like a long time ago, it really wasn't, I guess. I was really intimidated by doing top dots because I didn't think that I could get them centered, and I thought, ah, crap. If I put a top dot on something, especially the center of my piece, and it's off, it's going to look terrible. I've just embarrassed myself. And I had seen somebody do them purposefully here on the bottom in something like a peacock, right? Like peacock feathers, makes complete sense. And I started to use it, and I just fell in love with the way that it looks. I like the look of it on the bottom more than in the center. And I think I probably do that more than 90% of the time now. Okay. All right. I'm going to readjust my camera real quick. Okay. There we go. Hop. Now you're back overhead. Let's take a 4. I can actually see better when it's here. Okay, there. It's not impeding my view. All right, so 4, and then I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay. Take a quick glance over to the original because I think I also did it. Yeah, I did it on the row above it as well. Okay. These are the same size, so I'm going to keep the same size for the dot on top. Again, that's a 4. The original dot was a 6. The last place that I put silver in the original was on the white swooshes. And I don't know that that's really necessary. I'm going to tip this. But what I could do instead, let's go to a 3. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to put a tiny one. Got to be careful here. There's only one last step to the painting part, and then we're going to let this dry until tomorrow at least. I don't know what my day is going to look like. I don't know what any of my days this week are going to look like. I've got a heck of a hectic week this week. And my driver's license expired today. Today is the last day. Let me tell you guys, this craft show stuff is wonderful, and I'm really excited, but add that to the rest of everything else going on right now in my day-to-day, let me tell you. My husband being my chauffeur for this next week is not going to be fun for him. All right, let's paint. Let's paint. Let's paint. I'm gonna take. I'm just gonna grab a large. Make sure I didn't actually leave it. Okay, so I've just got. What is this one? 5/8, 16 millimeter. Doesn't matter. I'm just gonna use this in the silver, and we're gonna paint the bottom. For the first coat, I'm not too worried about the direction. Okay. My biggest concern is just making sure the bottom is covered and that the section where the side meets the bottom has a nice coating. Okay. Add a little more silver. Silver's kind of thick, which is actually helpful right now. Okay. And then I'm just going to take and pull straight up. See, and I could do this when I painted the base, and I've done that before. I've done that a couple of times now when I knew what I was going to paint on it. Otherwise, I just did the inside the same color as the rest of the base. But as long as you don't get too crazy, as long as your paintbrush is just like this, going straight up, then I don't get paint anywhere where it shouldn't be, over the edge. Okay. All right. Now that I've got it covered, okay, I'm gonna go back over. Okay. Make sure that I don't have any really weird brush, well, not strokes. Oops, smack you guys in the face. Huh? Okay. No brush lines, no weird spaces where the brush hit the edge here. Okay. Make sure it's all smoothed out. And I'm going to give that one more nice thick coat of silver. Okay. And I am pulling the paint all in one direction. Just in case as it dries, I do have any paint marks or paintbrush marks in there. Okay. There. All right, sides are done. Again, I'm going to give the bottom kind of a nice swirl here just to get those moved off and smoothed out. There. Okay. All right, looks good. Done. Now, like I said, I can even show you maybe. Now, this is the cloth that I have. This is just, you know, this is literally just my paint rag, right? I'm going to find a spot on it because I keep a damp rag next to me at all times. Okay. What I'm going to do, so this part I know is dry, for example, right? And I have the little chalk lines here. Let's make sure I'm not touching nothing else. So, like I said, what I've found is that you can take this and then just wipe it, right? and that's gone. It doesn't pull off the paint. I'm not pressing on it, right? I just kind of want to move over it a little. Doop, doop, doop. Okay. Mark's gone. Okay. Now you could use a Q-tip, and this is the suggestion that everybody has. This is what everybody does, and this is what everybody tells you to do. And it's 100% effective, right? I don't have water. Sorry if that's gross, I'm gonna lick it. Okay. You can take and do the same thing with a Q-tip, right? And you can go through each individual space, okay, like this, and that charcoal pencil just wipes right off. Okay, but I could literally sit here for an hour and get all the little lines off. So me being the semi-lazy, work smarter, not harder, just take my damp cloth. And when this is dry, of course, like I said, in a day or so, I'll just literally take this rag. I mean, it has paint on it right now. I'm not going to do that with the paint on it. But usually what I do is take this cloth, wash it really, really good with water, squeeze it out several times, keep it damp though, and then literally just wipe over the whole thing, right? I'm not even indiscriminate about the lines where they are right now. I just literally wipe the whole thing. Ta-da, done. So I hope I saved you a little bit of time with that. Okay. But otherwise, oops, I'm going to make sure. I think I just on accident touched. I did. Okay. One of those last little silver dots that I put on here. I just touched it, so I'm going to fix that before I forget it. Doop. Done. There. Okay. My little pillow. I'm going to sit it down like a crown on its pillow, and we're done. Last but not least, I will share with you, because I don't do this again on camera, the next step of the process for me on this is to varnish them. And I just use this. I just use the Duraclear, the gloss varnish. I went down a rabbit hole, let me tell you, trying to find the best varnish or cover or sealant for the Tealights, because I had a moment of panic. Like, what do I need to put on here besides resin? Because I knew resin is more heat resistant, right? And I resin all of my coasters. But I didn't really want to resin all of these. And I didn't necessarily really want to use the spray. And I went down a rabbit hole and I couldn't find a thing. I visited every website, manufacturer to maker to even Happy Dotting Company. I mean, I checked out videos from everywhere. I'm telling you, I went down a rabbit hole. And I could not find anything about this, and the little bits of information that I did find weren't really helpful. Everybody has their own opinion, everybody has their own preference, and if you read the directions on the packaging, like I said, I even went to the manufacturer's websites, scrolled through all of their stuff, FAQs, you name it, I went everywhere, and nobody has on their instructions about flame resistance, heat resistance, for this kind of project in specific. But I did test this. So I use 3 coats of this. So I'll put a coat down, I'll give it 20-30 minutes to dry, sometimes up to an hour. I'll put a second and then a third coat on it. Once that third coat was completely dry, I have another one of these that I've just tested. I just lit it. Right? I just put a candle in, kind of tipped it a little bit, made sure that the paint wasn't going to catch fire, that the varnish wasn't going to be destroyed or melted, or something was going to happen, and nothing happened. So tested it. It works. It's fine. Okay. So there we go. Very last thing is if you are watching this, if you want to make these and you need to know how I make them, or you are interested how I make the Tealight holders, because I've got a really cool, quick, cheap, and mess-free way to make these, just like everything else, right? I mean, I'm a very busy person. I'm a very busy mom. I've got the whole thing going, right? So check that out too. Okay, check out the video. If you go to the playlist that has all of these Tealights in it, it's going to be the first video in the playlist. It's going to tell you how I make the mold. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with me. All right. Please drop a comment below if you can think of any other designs, patterns, color combinations, whatever it is. If there's something you want to see, drop it below, because I would really like to hear from you. And I hope to see you guys next time. If you are curious about any of the other stuff, I've got several polls, I've got some communications, I've got lots of other stuff coming up on the community tab. So check that out while you're here. All right, thank you so much, guys. Have a fantastic evening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.